she just carried so much pride and so much dignity, being the only woman there, and somehow there's something about her that every time you looked at a photograph of Sushma Swaraj, it just made you feel proud to be Indian.
You mentioned a very appropriate name right now. You know, John Kerry was actually a very tall man.
Yes, he was
taller than normal
He's taller than even normal Americans.
Taller than
so
the
the
average
difference
American.
between the two in height. But I mean, her oratory or her knowledge was something that was perhaps better than John Kerry.
And also, you know, there's a scroll running on the side of our screen right now of photographs with her with various world leaders. And I also think that there's something to do with the body language in those photographs of the comfort and the sort of camaraderie.
Self-confidence.
For most of them, they're smiling, they're laughing, she's making someone smile or laugh. So she obviously brought her charm into that job as well, which is not an easy job.
So I'm reminded of one thing, since we were discussing about how she used Twitter very effectively to reach out to the people. Obviously, we also spoke about how some people would just tag her on some very trivial things. And there was one particular tweet which we were reading just a short while ago where somebody said, my refrigerator is conged off in my home. And she replied and she said, I can't help you with her bad refrigerator. I'm too busy rescuing distressed Indians.
Distressing people, rescuing people. And I think that one of the most beautiful tributes written on Twitter in the last 24 hours is someone who said, Madam, can the embassy help us in bringing you back?
Correct.
Yeah.
I think that was very beautiful. Like, that she's helped bring so many people back.
That's
but
right.
this time, unfortunately, we are going to have to say a final goodbye. There's no hope this time.
I, as we are talking this, I recall the memory of her when she was leader of opposition.
Yes.
And Barack Obama, he was then the president. Vinay will bear me out on this. And he had visited our country and he had made a speech in a joint session of parliament. And that time, I have seen there, look at the photograph.
This is one of these several photographs. There were
right.
at least 2 or 3 different photographs, and we'll try and get you. Could we put that photograph back up, please? Yes, and so there was something about this, something about the dignity with which she carried India to the world. And
her posture, her speech, everything that speaks for her confidence.
We must say this, a lot of the credit of placing India on the global stage for the last 5 years is given to the Prime Minister, but we shouldn't forget the contribution of Sushma Swaraj as External Affairs Minister. Mr. Rao?
At that time, I'd seen Sushma ji interacting with Barack Obama, the difference in the height. Apart from that, with the confidence in which she was interacting with the world's biggest power, that was amazing. She was not shy.
Yes.
There was no lack of confidence. And she continued speaking, and she was speaking with him for 20 minutes. I was member of the External Affairs Committee, of course. That's why I had the privy of in the meeting. But I really adore her confidence, self-confidence, and the pride that she took in herself and her Indianness. She always went in sari with a typical jacket and
bindi intact.
Absolutely. And many times a gajra.
Gajra, absolutely.
Yes, and she always wore the sindoor with pride. She wore the bindi with pride right through her career. She wore the sari with pride, and I think also the sort of custom-made signature jacket of hers became a statement.
That came later in her life.
It became a statement.
After she became the External Affairs Minister, that time the jacket came in her life.
I think this is and this is interesting, and I'll tell you this also. Women who enjoy wearing the sari find themselves in a tough spot when you travel overseas because it's cold. And the sari is not really jacket friendly, and it's not cold weather friendly. So I remember also when I traveled to a colder country and I really wanted to wear a sari for an event, and you didn't know what to do because it's not cold weather friendly. And I remember looking at visuals of Sushma Swaraj saying, okay, I can combine it with a jacket. So it's a certain way of wearing it where you wear the jacket and then the pallu goes on top of it. So she somehow solved a problem for a lot of women.
Once I was talking to her about her jacket, the development of her jacket. Then she said, what I realized, Bharat, is that the Indian gadgets, for example, the specs or the wallet or
the phone,
newly arrived mobile, the women don't have Indian women does not have pocket to keep it. So how do you carry it? You can't keep carrying pulse all the time. Which was Indira Gandhi's signature tune. Was her carrying her purse.
And she rarely did. She rarely carried a purse.
She never carried a purse.
She never carried a purse.
She never carried a purse. So she wore that jacket.
Yes.
I have 4 pockets.
That's an extremely interesting idea, actually. And most women will tell you, Mr. Raut, that it's a problem with women's clothing, that there are no pockets.
Yeah.
And even when we are wearing
Especially
trousers and jackets, yes, no, even trousers and jackets, they don't make pockets
That's
for us.
right. Yeah.
So normally, which is why, I mean, women have handbags, but what a brilliant suggestion, you just custom make jackets with a lot of pockets.
She said, I have 4 pockets.
Yes. So you can put everything in your pockets. But there's a lovely photograph that, I personally remember of Brinda Karat, Sushma Swaraj and Sonia Gandhi post, what they thought was the passing of the Women's Reservation Bill, although it didn't fully pass at that time.
Yeah.
And this is, I think, one of those photographs that's on the screen right now. And it just showed they crossed party lines, and it was across party lines.
All
women came together.
Women power.
Yes, women came together. It was a beautiful day.
So if you notice, for a staunch political adversary, Sonia Gandhi's letter today that she's written to her husband is remarkable. I mean,
Yes.
it tells you how that despite that they remain political adversaries, bitter political adversaries. I mean, as we were discussing in the morning, perhaps her opposition was one of the key factors why Sonia Gandhi gave way to Manmohan Singh.
Yes, didn't bring up Prime Minister.
Yeah, but she was effusive, and she acknowledged how brilliant her career and her fight throughout her life has been.
Right. Let me bring in our other guests as well. Mr. Nag, obviously for those who track Parliament, and there's a difference between being a politician and being a parliamentarian.
Yeah,
it is a very specific job. On the Congress side, for example, Pranab Mukherjee was considered, the parliamentarian who understood the ways of Parliament. On, the side of the BJP or the NDA, there was Mr. Advani, there was Sushma Swaraj. These were the lead parliamentarians. There was obviously Atal Bihari Vajpayee. So for people who track Parliament as journalists, Sushma Swaraj sort of created her own style. She came out of the shadow of Atal Bihari Vajpayee and created her own style as a parliamentarian. Mr. Nag?
Yes. Actually, the word politician
Yes.
is taken in a negative term as far as armed public is concerned.
Yes.
But she was not only a mere parliamentarian. She was a politician too.
Yes.
But she used her political acumen in the right direction.
Yes.
It was for the benefit of the party in the right sense, and also for the benefit of the people at large. She always used to say, I am here to represent the people who cannot reach the parliament.
Yes.
If that is her definition, and if all politicians, if they carry forward this definition, all politicians would be of good nature. And
Absolutely.
politics will have some meaning. Yes, she was a parliamentarian because she knew all parliamentary laws, norms, practices. She knew Kaul Shakdar, which is we consider as Bible of Indian Parliament, by the bottom of the back of her hand.
That's right.
Yes.
Any time she would give any reference from Kaul Shakdar, made Parliament book on Parliament, and also after having so much of experience of running 3 terms in Haryana, then 7 terms in Parliament, she really knew what Parliament means and how Parliament runs and how Parliament should run.
That's right.
So she would keep giving anecdotes, and she had, again I told you, a photographic memory.
Yes.
She had a photographic memory. So she would, just like that, she could give any anecdote of, say, from 60s to 70s to 40s to 50s, whatever. You ask her any incident, she would give date-wise.
Yeah, I just wanted to add one thing to what Bharat sir is saying, and
Yes.
I think since through the morning we've discussed about how brilliant an orator she was, I think there is one quality that I think distinguishes the good from the great, and which is that apart from a good orator, you need to be a very, very good listener as well. And I think she was a fabulous listener, and that, being a great listener actually is more endearing as a quality, because the other person then believes that you're giving that person time and that you're actually processing what is being told. So a lot of leaders that you meet will be in front of you, but they may not necessarily be listening to you. So they're just going through the motions. They're just giving you the courtesy of being present there. Their mind is somewhere else. Mrs. Swaraj, I remember, was a great listener. You could have probably met her for an hour and you could have spoken for 40 minutes.
Yes.
And she would speak only for 10. And that was a remarkable call. I think being a great listener is what probably set her apart from a lot of other politicians.
Absolutely. This observation is really wonderful observation as far as Sushma ji is concerned, because once we journalists covering Parliament, had the opportunity to have informal interaction with Sushma ji. That time the Vice President of India had thrown a party for the MPs, and some journalists were of course invited, and so I was privy to that. That time I was not in politics at all. And that time Sushma ji was saying that why there is so much of chaos, because he said for the God has given mouth to all politicians but no ears. So they don't listen to. He said पहले सुनना चाहिए कुछ बात करने से पहले. And that, she said, I keep listening to people, and after that, if I must, then I speak.
That's true.
That's actually a beautiful thought. Sorry, Mr. Nag, we interrupted you. You were going to talk about the skill it takes to be an active, effective parliamentarian. And Sushma Swaraj, I asked you about the particular style that she brought to Parliament.
Before that, I would like to point out something else.
Yes.
That she was a woman who came from Haryana, which is a very, very male-dominated rough state. And from that, she came to politics, which was also a very male-dominated place. And she was in the BJP, which was totally male-dominated. Yet she made a mark. And this thing came to my mind when you talked about her going to these foreign countries and being absolutely at ease with world leaders. Because as a woman, she could rule, or what should I say, endear herself in this male-dominated world of Haryana and BJP, then she could manage anything else. And that's why you find her so at ease with world leaders. And now, by this time, I've forgotten a question. If you repeat it, I'll answer that.
The style that she brought into being a parliamentarian, Mr. Nag.
She was a good parliamentarian, she was a good orator, and in those days, the procedures of Lok Sabha and all like that, you had good orators. People used to really look for good orators, not like today when there's all shouting. And she was a good orator. She was, because she was a lawyer probably, and she had a background not only in BJP, but also before that in the socialist parties probably. So she was the most person who could speak well. She was a lawyer, and therefore in that old political style, she could give repartees and give facts and not ram through things. And therefore, she was a first generation BJP leader. And now we are seeing the second generation BJP leaders. In that sense, she never, though everybody is praising her, she never fitted well with the Modi regime, Modi Raj. And that is one reason. So she is from the old guard. And don't forget that she was much younger than Vajpayee and Advani. I mean, she was born in 1951. We are talking of Vajpayee was born in 1924. But she was all at ease with them, and they accepted as a equal compatriot. And this, to me, is the greatest achievement for a woman to make a mark in that male-dominated world of BJP and Haryana. That, I think, is a great thing, and not just as foreign minister or something else. And I hope you appreciate this as a woman, Faye. The point that I'm making.
I appreciate it a great deal, Mr. Nag, and I do believe that every step taken by a woman leader, it moves a generation, because a lot of women or young girls across the country who saw Ms. Swaraj would grow up believing that it's possible for them to do as well. It's possible to be External Affairs Minister. It's possible to be, an outspoken politician. It's possible to stand for what you believe in. And I think, most importantly, it's possible to be graceful and dignified and still be tough as nails, which I think everybody knew about her. She at no point seemed like a soft, pushover of an individual, but she at no point either lost her dignity at all in the entire, in her entire career. She maintained her dignity, she maintained her grace, and whatever, like was being pointed out, she wore the bindi, she wore the sindoor, she wore the Mangal Sutra, she wore the sari, but she was still tough as nails. And I think that's a beautiful combination, a beautiful example for Indian women, really.
Oh, absolutely. And I think one other legacy, which frankly, current politicians across party lines would do well to learn from and probably imbibe from, is this. She's perhaps one of the best examples of how a politician or a ruler or a leader must be in direct contact with the people they govern. I mean, that's something that is essential, and that is something that is becoming increasingly distant nowadays in politics. The rulers tend to be a little more distant in terms of direct, last mile, individual contact with people. I mean, for various reasons, but that's how the modern politics is. And in Delhi, for instance, there are lots of politicians around whom you will see a coterie or a darbar or a hangers around group, which is always close to them. You would never see that with Mrs. Swaraj, even though she was accessible. You could always access her and she was very friendly and polite, but you never had this coterie or darbar around her who would hang around. And so she was businesslike, but equally accessible, but equally firm about not doing any of this. And I think that is professionalism of a very high level.
Mr. Raut, I do want to ask you about Parliament. Again, as leader of opposition, again for the layperson, Parliament may be about making speeches, but there's so much more to it than that. There's also strategizing what your party is going to do on any particular date, strategizing what your response is going to be, negotiating perhaps across the aisle a little bit to decide what you're okay with and what you're not. And Ms. Swaraj did that very beautifully as leader of the opposition. It's a position she held with great pride.
In Parliament particularly, the working of Parliament is like an iceberg.
Yes.
What you see over the water is only 1/10 of what is there. 9/10 is hidden under the water.
Yes.
The same way in Parliament also, many things happen behind the curtain. And what is manifested is worth manifesting. That's it.
Yes.
So, as being the leader of opposition, whip of the party, of main opposition party, she was instrumental in bringing in government and opposition, rather all parties together behind the curtain. She would sit in the chairman's office or speaker's antechamber, and then she would discuss the things with the other party, a smallest of the party. She would discuss, take everybody into confidence, and see to it that there is more consensus than not in the house. And she was really instrumental in bringing in harmony in that. But when it comes to taking fight with the government, then she would also ignite that type of fire in everybody's mind.
Can you give us an example of one such fight she picked up?
Yeah, she has many. I think funeral is now reached the crematorium.
Yes, it has reached the crematorium. The pallbearers, they're bringing in the body of Sushma Swaraj into the crematorium. As we can see, there was a guard of honor that's also taking position, Vinay?
Yeah, and I think the question that you asked earlier has gotten answered. So there wasn't a walking procession at all. They just took her
Came in the motorcade.
So it was very quick. It was much quicker. And so we assumed, of course, that this would go on till about 6 o'clock or 6:30. It's likely to not last that long.
Absolutely.
At this point, it seems to be moving fairly quickly.
Is they smaller in Delhi now or longer?
No, it is not smaller. I mean, well, it's a little smaller than June, but not as small. So the sunlight would be around till about 5.
And it's still fairly humid and warm.
They have to do before sundown.
It has to be done before sunset.
That's correct.
But I think also typical in her personal style, it's quick. It's she wouldn't have wanted too much fuss. It's almost like it's like we would have remembered her to be.
Yeah, no, I mean, she was fairly tradition-oriented in the sense that, I mean, I remember in Delhi, there is a popular harvest festival called Tej in North. She would celebrate that openly. In fact, she was pictured and photographed and video shot quite a lot of times. Karwa Chauth is something she used to do publicly. I mean, in the sense that cameras were allowed to come and shoot that. So she was very tradition-oriented in that sense. Because she comes from that kind of a family background. I mean,
and what was that ceremony in which you see them?
That's Karwa
Chauth.
That's the breaking of the fast.
She used to do it publicly.
She used to do that publicly.
Yes.
Yeah, so.
But I thought that was more of her public life.
Yeah, probably, yes.
Yeah, in her personal life, I don't know whether she was believing in all these things or not, but that was her public life. I don't think she was exhibitionist in any
Not
case.
at all. Absolutely.
Not at all.
No, absolutely.
So, given a choice, she would not have allowed even this type of funeral to take place.
That's right.
And also, you know, it's very interesting when she decided to not contest this last election in 2019. Her husband, Governor Kaushal put out a very interesting tweet where he said, "I've been chasing after you for all these years. Now maybe we can reverse."
Yeah, he said even Milkha Singh took a break. even Milkha Singh stopped running one day. That's what he said. Yes.
So and it was perhaps one of the few public displays of of affection between the two of them.
Yeah, this was one. There was another one when she was facing that controversy over the interfaith marriage in Lucknow. Mr. Swaraj had come out in public to defend her. In fact, had recounted one anecdote about how she took care of Mr. Swaraj's mother, who was suffering from cancer, and she said she took a year off from work and was at his mother's bedside. And then one person ordered.
Just 1 second. We're just going to go into a quick break. We seem to be having a technical issue with our transmission.
दिखाई दे रहे हैं और ये सब जो है भावभीनी श्रद्धांजलि उनको दे रहे हैं और साथ साथ अंतिम विदाई की तैयारी चल रही है, प्रोसेस है, जिसमें यहाँ एक तरफ कहा जाए तो गायत्री मंत्र का उच्चारण हो रहा है यहाँ पे जो चल रहा है। यहाँ इस जगह के कार्यक्रम जो होता है यहाँ पे, इसके अलावा पंडित जो होते हैं विधि कराते हैं, आरती विधि कराते हैं, पंडित वहाँ बैठे हैं कार्यक्रम को कराने का अंजाम दे रहे हैं।
The Prime Minister there has arrived. He's seated along with Mr. Rajnath Singh and Mr. Amit Shah. So, Mr. Rao, you were speaking, before we went into break, and with the Prime Minister here, obviously, it's obviously the ceremonies will begin fairly quickly now.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I think now the official ceremony would begin. That the national flag would be removed from her body. And with all state honors, then the salute will be given, and then the 21 what is it called?
Gun salute.
21 guns.
21 gun salute would be given to her, and then it will be handed over to the family for the last. But I don't think there are any religious rituals kept in this.
Yeah, so at the Lodhi Road Crematorium, there are actually two. There is one where you, of course, the body is burnt on a pyre, but there's an electric crematorium right next to it. So, I mean, from what we can see, it looks like possibly there is the electric crematorium. So
it looks like electric crematorium.
Yeah.
Yes,
but they're adjacent. So.
Nitin Gadkari also in the front row there. He's had a long career of association with Sushma Swaraj as well. While he was president of the BJP, they worked very closely together.
That's right, absolutely. And I think, I mean, if you see, we heard how he spoke about her yesterday, and that tells you how effusive he was. I mean, and because Mr. Gadkari and Mr. Sushma Swaraj's styles are pretty similar. I mean, they have a very similar way of dealing with things, and he ensured that she got her rightful place in the party as well.
I think daughter is giving the fire.
Is it a traditional?
Yes, there seems to be some ceremonies.
Okay. Yes, I think it's not clear whether it's the electric one or the regular. Yeah, that's the daughter.
It is the daughter.
That's the daughter.
Daughter is giving the rights. This is also a sign of her progressiveness.
Right.
Yes.
She has a husband, but still she is allowed her daughter to do the rights.
So is this normally something the husband would do?
A male member,
either
husband or a son.
Okay.
Or son.
In this case, they have a daughter.
They have a daughter. Yeah.
पूरा परिवार यहाँ पे दिख रहा है। पहले जो पार्टी शरीर है यहाँ पे लाया गया, तो मैं आपको दिखाने की कोशिश कर रहा हूँ कि किस तरह से यहाँ उनकी बॉडी को इस मंदिर में रखा गया है। यहाँ पे कुछ माला जो है वो अर्पित की गई और यहाँ सामने इस तरह से यहाँ पहुँचे हैं।
So that's Swaraj Kaushal and his daughter paying tribute at the last rites of Sushma Swaraj. And I just want to read out this this message again that her husband put out when she had decided to retire and not contest the election of 2019. She said, he said, And I quote, "Thank you very much for your decision of not contesting any more elections. I remember that there came a time when even Milkha Singh stopped running. This marathon has been on since 1977, and that's 41 years. You've contested 11 direct elections. In fact, you contested all elections held since 1977, except when the party did not allow you to contest in 91 and 2004. He went on to say, you've been contesting elections since you were 25, and fighting elections for 41 years is quite a marathon. Madam, I've been running behind you for 46 years. I'm no longer a 19-year-old. Please, I'm also running out of breath. Thank you." That was a message from Swaraj Kaushal on the retirement of Sushma Swaraj. And I think that also, you know, it's an example for young people across the country of a husband who stayed perhaps in the shadows and supported his wife, because this would not have been an easy life at all. 41 years in public life and such active public life would not have been easy. Right?
Absolutely, there is no question.
During this time, Swaraj Kaushal was following his own career.
Yes.
He was a governor, he was attorney general,
yes.
and then he was governor of Manipur also.
Yes.
Mizoram.
Yeah. Yes, yes.
And he also became a MP, member of parliament, when she was also member of parliament. But they never crisscrossed each other's line, because he belonged to Samajwadi culture, socialist culture, and she was already in BJP.
Yes, and also, I mean, a very interesting thought of the fact that within a marriage, that you can have two different ideologies, that you can have two different beliefs, you can have two different careers, and you can support both.
Both, yeah.
And both can coexist in a very beautiful way. And, you know, obviously, all photographs that have ever come out of the two of them have been very affectionate, very loving. They've not shied away from holding hands in public, from him putting his arm around her in public. So they've sort of embodied a modern marriage.
That's right.
Over the last 40-odd years.
You know, when we were showing the visual, there was one point I was making which is linked to what you just said about during the interfaith marriage when she was getting attacked by the trolls. Her husband came to her defense, and unusually, because he never used to really talk about her in public, at least on social media, and he put out a lot of stuff on Twitter. Some people then said she's a remarkable lady because they came out in support to what he said. And I remember one tweet that Mr. Kaushal sent. He says, "Yes, I agree with you. That's why I married her." So it was quite a rare display of public affection.
Yes, it is quite rare, Mr. Ram?
And they had a wonderful mutual understanding. They had different paths of life as far as politics is concerned, and different family life.
Yes.
So they managed it so well, so well. That's why perhaps Kaushal Swaraj never entered into her public life at all.
Yes.
I used to see him in Central Hall, because he is also former MP. So he used to be in the Central Hall. But for many times he would sit on one side with his friends, old-time friends, and she would be here with the sitting MPs and journalists, and she would be surrounded by journalists and MPs. But never interacted there, never behaved like a husband and wife.
Yes.
but they had a wonderful relationship between them.
But obviously a very strong example for couples across the country, for young couples across the country, on how to coexist and how your careers and your beliefs and your politics or your political convictions can coexist in a marriage without stepping on each other's toes.
Here the thing is that both were in public life.
Correct.
Yes.
Both were in public life, but in different parties, different philosophies.
Which is tougher.
I remember, I have not seen them, I only read about it. It's Sucheta Kripalani and Acharya Kripalani.
Yes.
Early days of Indian independence. Sucheta Kripalani was the first woman chief minister of UP, and she was a socialist. No, she was Congress. And Acharya Kripalani was a very staunch socialist.
That's right.
With Jayaprakash Narayan, Babu and them. But never interacted with each other. Both, they were a happily married couple.
Yes.
But they followed a different path in political life. Same way with Sushma ji and Swaraj Kaushal ji.
So a series of Congress leaders there, Mr. Ghulam Nabi Azad, Anand Sharma coming forward to pay their respects.
Anand Sharma was there.
Yes, Anand Sharma to pay their respects to Sushma Swaraj. Sort of an, perhaps a tribute to the fact, quite rightly, that she had people respect her across the aisle, very strongly so.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there was no doubt. Anand Sharma, I think, would have had more reasons and occasions to interact with her because he was involved in foreign policy for the Congress. He's represented India when Congress was in power in international forums. So obviously, there is a meeting of mind there to that extent. But I think irrespective of party affiliations, Mrs. Swaraj's ability to endear to everyone around them is not something which is very common. I mean, you don't see that very often. And as I said earlier, I mean, today Mrs. Gandhi, who was perhaps her fiercest opponent in politics, her letter to Mr. Swaraj Kaushal indicates that.
Yes, in fact, you know, she did. If I may just read out some portions of it, this is what Sonia Gandhi has said. I'm shocked and deeply saddened at the sudden passing away of your beloved wife, Srimati Sushma Swaraj. This was a letter that Sonia Gandhi has written to Sushma Swaraj's husband. She goes on to say that Sushma Swaraj was a lady of extraordinary gifts. Her courage, her determination, dedication, and ability manifest in every position that she held. Above all, it was her warm personal qualities that brought special luster to her years in public and political life. She made herself accessible even to the humblest person and established a warm rapport with the people of all walks of life. And with her empathy and compassion, gave Indian diplomacy a human face. She has reached out to help every Indian citizen in distress. Mrs. Gandhi has gone on to call Sushma Swaraj a superb orator, a great parliamentarian, and she says she had a rare gift for friendship that won her affection and admiration across the political spectrum. In our many years together as colleagues in Lok Sabha, we developed a warm personal relationship. I feel her loss greatly. The same courage and grit that was the hallmark of Sushma ji's political life, she showed in her personal life as well, as she faced her serious ailments with incredible fortitude. She has left us when she was far too young and when she had so much more to contribute to national life. And that makes her death even more tragic. So that's an excerpt of the letter that Sonia Gandhi has written to Mrs. Swaraj's husband. And we just see there again Mr. L.K. Advani paying his respects to Ms. Swaraj. And that, I suppose, a terribly sad moment. I think for people who've been tracking politics, they would understand what a toll that would take on a frail old man, I suppose.
And Mr. Advani was her guru, political guru in that sense, because he's the one who spotted her.
He must have seen her from her age of 25.
Yes.
Yes.
From
when
the
she
ABB
entered politics.
Yeah.
And now to face this moment must be very heartbreaking for him.
Manish Sisodia and Arvind Kejriwal now follow. Yes. Let me just quickly go back to Sanjeev Singh. Sanjeev, thank you for being so patient with us. This is obviously, you know, as we watch these visuals right now of all of these politicians and leaders saying goodbye across party lines, both state and center, it's a testament to the individual that she was inside and outside of Parliament.
Yeah, in fact, you know, there are two qualities of Sushma Swaraj that stand out. One, of course, you know, the whole panel has been discussing in detail is the fact that she had friends across the political spectrum, right from 1999 to 2004, and then eventually when she became leader of opposition in 2009, we saw that, you know, we would often be sitting in the press gallery and we would see these sort of, you know, hush-hush, you know, 2-minute conversations happening between Congress leaders and the BJP leaders. And suddenly, you know, you would see that one of the previous hour would have seen a lot of disturbances happening, a lot of shouting happening in Parliament, and suddenly everything would be quiet and things would carry on smoothly. So that's the sort of aura and friendship she had with political leaders from, you know, different parties. The second thing, of course, that also has been discussed in detail is the fact that she was never scared to take on challenges. And we saw that when she did that in Ballari and she went and fought the election. Everybody knew that Sushma Swaraj didn't even have an outside chance. Yet she went, she stood there, she fought the election and she fought bravely. Even in 1998, you know, when we saw when the elections were happening in Delhi and she was hoisted on the chief minister's chair before that, that was also a time when the Delhi unit of BJP was facing a lot of unrest and anger within. But she still went ahead and tried her best, although we all know what happened in 1998 at that point of time because of the onion prices going through the roof. But these are the two qualities that stand out. A true politician who always had friends. She never had any enemies across the political spectrum, and as Sonia Gandhi's letter shows us now. And the second, that any challenge that was thrown to her, she was always up to the mark. Even though she knew that it could be for a losing cause, she would always give it her best shot.
And we did see, of course, when the Prime Minister visited the residence this morning, he nearly teared up, or there was a display of emotion that's perhaps a little unusual for the Prime Minister.
That's true, and I think the last time we saw that was when Mr. Vajpayee's funeral, because he got a little emotional about that. But and I mean, and I've always maintained that, you know, in the BJP's pecking order of the public appeal in terms of oratory, in terms of their ability to talk and argue a point of view, Sushma was second to Vajpayee. Vajpayee occupied that position for a long time in Parliament, but I think Sushma was the second best speaker that you had inside Parliament. And not just that, I mean, not just a great speaker, but very, her speeches weren't all rhetoric, it was also a lot of facts.
The Vice President seems to have broken down. Again, for Mr. Naidu also, who has such a long, beautiful, illustrious career within the BJP and within Parliament, they would have been very close colleagues. Mr. Rath?
Yeah. In Rajya Sabha, I've seen Sushma ji and the now Vice President, that time was a MP, they used to sit next to each other for a long time. That's right. So lose such a colleague must be very heartbreaking for.
Yes, it must be terribly heartbreaking for him. And they both, actually, if I'm not mistaken, they both started their careers with the BJP fairly early. So they will have had a very long association
and
as
both
colleagues.
rose from ranks.
Yes, on their own.
Yeah,
yes.
and both without any political background.
Yes, yes. So obviously, that's the head of the army staff there, paying his respects.
That was General V.K. Singh, I think.
General V.K. Singh, I beg your pardon. General V.K. Singh.
That's Rajyavardhan Rathore now.
Rajyavardhan Rathore, yeah.
Former MP chief.
still with us. Mr. Nag, I don't know if you have access to the visuals right now, but several chief ministers of state, the Prime Minister, every single senior BJP leader, almost all of the union ministers are present at this point, as the body is now moved from this point to, one assumes, inside the crematorium. This is a feeling actually that would spread across.
Now the flag will
be removed, and we will have the gun salute at this point. Right?
That's right. The last post, which is sounded by the buglists.
Did we check on the platform?
I think so. That's fine. I think.
चले गए ना
पार्टी शेड्यूल जो था
और आप भी ऊपर कर लो मैं भी कर लेता हूँ क्या करें अब आप देखो ना आगे देखो ना आप कितना आगे हो गए हम कहाँ तक अब मैं भी कुछ नहीं कर
As the country pauses for a moment across the country to say goodbye to a leader who was much respected and much loved. In fact, the Wall Street Journal a couple of years ago called her the most loved Indian politician. And you know, there is another face we are missing in this entire crowd, and that's the face of Mr. Arun Jaitley, who's also a very close associate and a colleague of hers, who's unfortunately also unwell. And I'm sure he's someone who would have wanted to be present today.
Yes, in fact, his medical advice is similar to Mrs. Swaraj's advice of not being out in the dust and not being in contact with too many people. That's the exact same advice that he's been given as well. And that's why perhaps you don't see him here.
Yes, Mr. Rath, they would have been, they've had a long association as colleagues as well.
Yeah, Arun Jaitley and Sushma ji had very, very long association. And as ministers also, they work very closely to each other. But I think the failing health of Arun Jaitley also, that must have prevented him from coming to the funeral in public.
Yes.
But he had tweeted in the morning.
Yes, he had.
And he's paid his tribute to Sushma ji.
So the reporters, reporters there are saying that it is the electric crematorium where they take him.
Well, a very somber BJP leadership sitting in that front row, including Mr. Venkaiah Naidu, who's still perhaps brushing away the tears that are rolling down his eyes. So it sort of signifies the kind of personal relationship she had with every individual leader in the party.
They were from the same age group, near about the same age group.
Yes.
They come up at the same time, and they fought for the BJP, and then they achieved the success at the end of the day. And perhaps after Modi came in, their ambitions were also limited to an extent. So they were sailing in the same boat.
Yes.
So that also brought them together. And definitely a feeling of losing somebody of the same age group.
Mr. Rath, if you look back right now to maybe pre-2014 or pre-2012, which is when the name of the current Prime Minister Modi came into fray as a candidate. For a very long time, everyone assumed that the natural heir in the BJP after Mr. Vajpayee and Mr. Advani was Ms. Swaraj.
Yes, and that was general feeling because from 2000, particularly from 2009 to 14, Vinitji will bear me out, it was Sushma Swaraj who on the floor of the Lok Sabha really kept the Congress on the toes.
Yes.
Every day, 7 big scandals were discussed during 9 to 14. And in every time, it was Sushma ji who was fighting like a warrior with them. So definitely when the opportunity came in, everyone thought that it would be a natural choice of Sushma Swaraj. I remember Shiva Sena chief then, Senior Thakre, he had gone public that we will support Sushma ji. Because that time Modi was only the Gujarat chief minister. He was not on the national scene.
Yes, and she had spent many, many years on the national scene.
On the national scene.
Yes.
So her name was discussed all over. So, but BJP thought otherwise, which was rightly so. And when Modi's name came in the Goa conclave of BJP, I think Sushma ji being a committed party soldier, she bowed to the wishes of the party high command. And she decided to play the second fiddle. So Venkaiah Naidu and so Arun Jaitley, all this, I think there were 7 such people who were aspiring at one time to be the Prime Minister of India, of which Pramod Mahajan lost his life much earlier.
Yes.
But otherwise, the rest of them were still in the fray. And they were, each one was aspiring to be the Prime Minister. But Narendra Modi, who was not in the race at all, he came up and took the prime seat.
Well, of course, he's seated next to Mr. L.K. Advani, who was also in some ways a mentor to the current Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi. And Mr. Advani, again, was largely sort of assumed would be PM one day, someday.
Oh, yes.
A day that was to never come, unfortunately.
Absolutely.
No, but the time which frame you are talking about in 2012, That time, I think he had already lost the
no,
missed the
Advani
bus.
by then had lost
He had
it.
missed the
She's,
bus.
I think, referring to an era
Then people
earlier.
were thinking him as the future president of India.
Yes.
Even
Again,
that
another day
also
that was not
that also
to be.
did not happen.
No,
But
actually, no.
I think Mr. Advani's chances would have perhaps been around the India Shining campaign, if that was a campaign that led to a victory.
The first logical opportunity for Mr. Advani to become the Prime Minister was post the Rath Yatra, when the BJP had the first shot at making the government in '98.
Yes.
I mean, that's when he got pipped because he was considered a hardliner, and in those days it was the moderate face that was supposed to have been ruling India, and hence Vajpayee got that chance. But I was just just to
very
add
different,
to what,
sort of view on what is hardline today compared to what was hardline then.
Absolutely. Today he's considered moderate.
Yes, today he's considered
just to add to what Bharat sir was saying,
Yes.
on when this battle between 2009 and 14, which he talked about on who's going to be the next leader of the BJP post Mr. Vajpayee. While Mr. Jaitley's name was being talked about, Sushma Swaraj's name was being talked about, Sushma enjoyed one specific edge, which is this, that unlike Mr. Jaitley, she had already displayed her ability to win popular elections, which Mr. Jaitley had not done so far. Mr. Jaitley had contested and lost from Amritsar in 2014. But before that, Mr. Swaraj had displayed that in the assembly elections, and then she had also done it in the Lok Sabha elections from Vidisha.
And on different constituencies.
On different constituencies. So that was one reason which was then touted as an advantage for her, because she was a popular leader, popularly elected member of the lower house, and hence the more rightful claimant for a likely Prime Minister's position. I mean, till Mr. Modi appeared on the scene, and of course then the whole story changed. But so she was that way the front runner after Mr. Vajpayee.
She was definitely a front runner, but I think I will again try to compare this with Vallabhbhai Patel and Pandit Nehru. One had the popular appeal, and one had the organizational skills.
Yes.
So perhaps here Sushma ji was having more organizational skills, more parliamentary skills, and Modi ji had the popular standing. So that won finally.
Yes.
But I don't think she had the feeling of getting, of losing the battle.
That is true.
Well, she continued to serve with the same gusto.
Exactly the same way. So that she never,
there was no change in her commitment whatsoever. When there is, of course, it seems to be a long period of waiting at this point. We haven't seen, so normally in an event like this, we see the flag being folded up and handed over to the family.
It's not being shown.
It's not being shown. It's probably happening indoors.
It's probably because the electric crematorium has a slightly different layout there. I mean, there is actually really only one door, and that door leads into a hall. And at the end of the hall, there are these three.
It is not in open.
It's not in open. It's an enclosed hall. And inside that hall, there are these tunnels that they have, which come out. The bodies
now
there and they go in.
Gunfire is happening.
Yeah.
Yes, we'll just breathe the visual, please.
जिस तरीके
Yes. So what we witnessed there was the 21-gun salute and the bugle going off and the final salute. Vinay, so this would actually suggest that the last rites are over.
Yes. So I think, I mean, what's happening right now means that the body must have now gone in for.
It must have led the fire.
That's right, to lead the fire. If it is otherwise it's electrical.
टीम को चलिए क्या कर रहे हैं लिखता हुआ मुंह देख रहे हैं मुझे भी तो मालूम है
So that's the family exiting the crematorium, and you can see the flag folded up in one of their one family member's hands as the leaders who are waiting outside also rise now. This is obviously, Mr. Rath, an indication that the ceremony is over and the cremation is also over.
Modi is holding Advani's hand.
Yes.
While walking.
Yes, Mr. Rajnath Singh also lending some support there to his elbow. So obviously, this is a difficult time for Mr. Advani. Also at his age, this is the second funeral he has attended in a very short period of time to people who were close to him after Mr. Vajpayee's funeral. So this is going to, obviously, for a man of his age, this is
Vajpayee
difficult.
was his colleague and Sushma was his shishya.
That's
yes.
right.
Yes. Yeah. A difficult time.
Very difficult time, and I think, look, I can almost imagine Mr. Advani would be a fairly lonely man today. I mean, he's lost people around him who were close to him.
He lost his wife.
He's lost Mr. Vajpayee, and now he's lost a very able and an efficient protege of his. And I mean, it's very lonely. It's not, it's tough to, in any case, deal with death of any sort. But when there is somebody that close to you, it's even tougher.
Yes, so we see the Prime Minister, Mr. Advani, there, I believe, walking to the exit?
That's right.
Yes. Of course, as protocol, the Prime Minister has to exit first, and that's just SPG protocol that cannot be broken, Vinay?
That's right. Also for safety reasons as well, because Prime Minister's cavalcade is longer and bigger, so it just eases of the rest of the cavalcade movements.
Of course, Vice President will go.
Yes.
And then the Prime Minister.
The Vice President.
But I don't think that type of strict protocol will be followed.
Yeah,
here.
exactly.
Yes.
I
don't think the Vice President has exited yet because
they don't necessarily follow it.
He was with Mr. Rajnath Singh, and he was also fairly distraught. Mr. Naidu looked very distraught as well.
Surely saddest moment of recent times.
Yes. Yes, that is indeed. And we're going to leave it there for the moment as we have said our final goodbyes now. But the pain, perhaps the sense of the somber mood across the country will continue for the rest of the night. And we will remember Ms. Swaraj for many, many years to come for her contribution to public life, to the country, to politics, to the women of this country, and of course in the final position that she held to external affairs as the Prime Minister drives out of the crematorium, bringing to an end the ceremony and the final goodbye there to Ms. Sushma Swaraj.
Sushma Swaraj's last rites conducted with full state honours. Top leaders paid their last respects at the Lodhi Road Crematorium in New Delhi. The Reserve Bank of India cuts the repo rate by an unprecedented 0.35% to 5.4%. This means cheaper home loan rates when banks pass on the rate cut to borrowers. While Mumbai receives some respite from the rains, western districts of Maharashtra continue to reel under floods. Kolhapur, Pune, Sangli and Satara severely affected. Sister Lucy, one of the nuns who protested against rape accused Franco Mulakkal, dismissed from the Franciscan Clarist congregation. Nair Hospital Dean Dr. Ramesh Bharmal is under the scanner in the Payal Tadvi suicide case. The Mumbai Crime Branch to conduct a departmental inquiry against the Dean for inaction against Payal's complaint. Rahul Dravid becomes the latest former cricketer to get a notice from BCCI on specific conflict of interest allegations levelled against him. Saurav Ganguly reacts, calls it a new fashion in Indian cricket. Good evening, you're watching Mirror Now. I'm Sanjana Chauhan. Illustrious BJP leader and former External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj, who brought a rare empathy to India's diplomacy, is no more. She passed last evening after a cardiac arrest in Delhi. Now, the Delhi government has declared a two-day mourning for the leader who served as the first woman chief minister in the state.
A powerful orator, an easily accessible minister, and a politician of many firsts. Sushma Swaraj was a loyal BJP leader who touched millions of hearts. Swaraj had a powerful political career, shattering many glass ceilings. He started as a socialist but gravitated towards the BJP, where she swiftly rose to become an effective public speaker and campaigner. She began as an MLA in 1977 and was the youngest cabinet minister in Haryana at 25. The seven-time MP was also the first woman chief minister of Delhi, albeit for a brief period. She was also the first full-time woman to take charge of the foreign ministry. She held portfolios at the centre, being Information and Broadcasting Minister and Parliamentary Affairs Minister in the Vajpayee government.
A big loss for BJP, big loss for Indian Parliament, big loss for India, because she was such a motivational leader. Many of us have, in our initial days, drawn inspiration from her. It's a big loss.
Swaraj took charge of the External Affairs Ministry after the BJP returned to power in 2014 under Prime Minister Narendra Modi. She was only the second woman to hold the portfolio after Indira Gandhi. Her outreach to the diaspora and her easy accessibility helped rescue many Indians in distress. Her quick and witty responses on Twitter often went viral and won over hearts across social media. Swaraj was someone who made the foreign ministry accessible through her revolutionary social media connect.
हम लोग बहुत दुखित हैं। वो हम लोग की बहुत ही स्नेहिल बड़ी बहन थी। उन्होंने हम लोग को सिखाया, बढ़ाया आगे। संसद में, संगठन में, सरकार में स्नेह मिलता था।
एक जो बहुत बड़ा योगदान जो वर्षों तक लोग याद रखेंगे, देश की जनता याद रखेगी और अंतर्राष्ट्रीय स्तर पे भी हर मूल भारतवासी याद रखेगा, वो ये था कि चाहे एक व्यक्ति हो या बड़ी संख्या में भारतवासियों के ऊपर किसी भी प्रकार की समस्या है तो दीदी स्वयं चिंता करती थी, रात भर बैठ के चाहे एक नर्स को लौटने की क्यों ना विषय हो.
A politician greatly admired and respected even by her political rivals.
अपनी पार्टी के प्रति वो बड़ी ईमानदार समर्पित महिला थी और कुशल पॉलिटिशियन थी और प्रशासक थी और अच्छी वक्ता थी. मुझे व्यक्तिगत तौर पर हमारी पार्टी को बड़ा दुख है. ऐसे दुख की घड़ी में कुदरत से हम लोग यही प्रार्थना करते हैं कि कुदरत उनके परिवार को इस दुख को सहन करने की शक्ति प्रदान करे.
मैं हमेशा कहता था कि बहन तुम कैसी हो, वो हमेशा पूछती थी भाई कैसे हो. तो मैं यही कह सकता हूं कि राजनीति अपनी अपनी जगह, लेकिन आज हमने एक बहन खो दी.
Even until her final hours, it was evident that her heart always beat for the country. In her last tweet, she thanked the Prime Minister for the centre's move on Jammu and Kashmir and said that she had been waiting to see this day in her lifetime. Sushma Swaraj's passing has left a huge void. A void that will perhaps be impossible to fill.
And as External Affairs Minister, Sushma Swaraj earned a reputation of a troubleshooter for the distressed Indian diaspora abroad. She helped rescue close to 200 people from Hyderabad who were stranded in Middle Eastern countries. Mirror Now spoke with Amjad Ullah Khan, who was leading the campaign to bring these people safely back home, along with the people who were rescued.
I am right now at the MBT office, which is the Majlis Bachao Tehreek office, and I am in conversation with Amjadullah Khan, who has been a very active person, a person who has actually brought about a lot of cases to the notice of Sushma Swaraj. In fact, he has now with him several people who were rescued by Sushma Swaraj's intervention. In fact, all these files that you see on the table right now, all these files are cases that are pending, cases that have been worked upon. All these are cases that were brought to the notice of the Ministry of External Affairs when Sushma Swaraj was at the helm of affairs. In fact, right now, thank you, sir, for bringing to us all these stories in which Sushma ji actually intervened. Can you tell us about few stories? Also in Hyderabad, several such cases are there which you have been bringing to light. Can you speak about some of them?
See, since Sushma Swaraj Madam became the External Affairs Minister in 2014, I had the opportunity to work previously also. I was raising this issue of women being stuck up in the Gulf. They are being cheated, sexually assaulted, but nobody was there to listen to us. But when I started, she came on the Twitter, and when I started tweeting, I was really astonished being the central minister she has a lot of work, but for every case which I have rescued, more than 200 women from Hyderabad, Telangana and Andhra Pradesh and Karnataka. For each and every case, she used to respond to my tweet, and it's a very personal loss for me, personal loss for the Telangana people, Andhra people, especially majority of the experts who are working in Gulf, they are from the Andhra and Telangana. This is Ilyas Begum. She is a resident of Zainab. Actually, she is Zainab Begum. She's a resident of Hyderabad. She was cheated and she was sent to Saudi Arabia as a khadama. And for 11 months, she was unable to have a touch with her family. Her daughter is there, her son is there. So they came to me, and when I personally tweeted her matter. So you can see probably to face the unbearable torture. She drank acid one day, and she was closed in the bathroom. She was tortured. So when I tweeted the matter, immediately the Indian embassy responded, and her kafil was not ready to rescue her. They put up a false case against her. So by recurring, she got the number of calls from the Ministry of External. She was a minister who created one Madad.in. Once you file a single application in that, if you cannot read and write also, just give a missed call on that number. The Delhi people will call you and get the story. What is your problem?
ज़ैनब जी, सुषमा जी का मृत्यु हो गया है. आपको क्या कहना है? उनके वजह से आप वापस हैदराबाद आ गए. आपका फैमिली के साथ आप मिल सके. आपको क्या कहना है?
उनका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद, बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया. जो मैं आई उनके तुफैल से और सर से तुफैल से. मैं अगर उन लोगों का हेल्प नहीं करते थे, आज मैं यहाँ पर इंडिया में नहीं रह सकती थी. बहुत मुश्किल में थी मैं. उम्मीद नहीं थी मेरे को आने की इंडिया को. बहुत हेल्प करे सर और MAT वाले सर और सुषमा सर मैडम. बहुत लेटर लिख के भेजे वहाँ पर. बहुत जब टॉर्चर करने लगे, तो जब इंडियन एम्बेसी से लेटर आने लगे, तो जब मेरे को इंडिया को भेजे, नहीं तो मैं आ नहीं सकती थी यहाँ पर. मैं बोल नहीं सकती. मेरे रात से बहुत मैं बोल नहीं सक रही, मगर बच्चे जब से सोए भी नहीं. मेरे को रात के 9 बजे मेरे मैडम का क्या बोल रहे.
Kilometers far she was stuck up there. So his husband came to me one day around about night 12 o'clock. He came to my house and he started crying. My wife, and she was really crying on the phone. I am having her video of that days, and she was really tortured, and entire marks were there on her hand. And so I tweeted to madam, and suddenly I got a response from she got a call from the Indian embassy in Riyadh. Her husband got a call from the New Delhi, and somehow she after working for nearly 21 days, she was rescued. So this is the issue is not of Zainab Begum or Amina Begum, but you will be very much astonished when I show you some photos. See the victim, one boy from Hyderabad. See, he went like this, and we rescued him in this position. You cannot see how we rescued him. When I tweeted this matter, so her office personally called up, and I remember some of his PA name is there, Vijay P. Devedi. He was very particular. Okay, Madam was very particular with regard to Hyderabad cases, and during the NRI ministers meeting when she conducted, In that meeting also, she used to ask about the Telangana cases and Andhra cases. She was like Telangana Bidda also. The experts who are stuck up there, they used to respect her and call her as she got a surname of Telangana. So really it's a very loss to not only these families also and to me personally also.
Geeta, who is differently abled and cannot speak, was parted from her family in childhood and was living in a charity ashram in Pakistan. In August of 2015, Swaraj replied to a tweet by a Pakistani activist and asked Indian High Commissioner to Pakistan to meet Geeta. 3 months later, with Swaraj's personal efforts, Geeta was brought back to India. But the minister didn't stop there. She tried to find Geeta's family and helped her rehabilitate. Since Geeta's family wasn't found, Swaraj has declared her as the daughter of India and assured full help to her. Now that Swaraj is no more, Geeta feels like she is an orphan and mourns the demise of a motherly figure.
If you do find an account or a post on Twitter or on any other form of social media, please report it not just to the platform but also to the police, because it's up to us really to be vigilant about what's happening on social media, because if we allow this sort of thing to go on, the sufferers will actually be children who will be exploited in order to make content like this. The government of Uttar Pradesh, if we consider the last 2-3 years, has failed day after day when it has come to law and order. The Supreme Court has simply said that almost everything to do with this case, with the victim, with her family, with her safety, with the hearings will just simply be moved out of the state of Uttar Pradesh. There are experts in this country who are now coming out to say that we are in serious trouble. For heaven's sake, listen to those people. Call them in, have those meetings, take their feedback and start fixing the problem.
Moving on now to some news coming in from Hyderabad, where junior doctors in Vijayawada have come out in large numbers to once again protest against the passing of the National Medical Commission Bill in Parliament. Several doctors were also detained for participating in